Hi everyone, my name is Sarah James from Jesse James Beads, and I am live with the fabulous. Hi everyone, my name is. I am live with myself and the fabulous Jem Hawkes, UK designer, wire artist extraordinaire. Jem, welcome today. Hello.
Hiya, thank you very much for having me back again. I truly appreciate it.
Jem, it has been such a treat having you on here. Jem Hawkes has been either live or premiering here on the Jesse James Beads Facebook channel for the past few weeks now with these amazing, amazing wire projects. Jem, this has just been so cool to see how you create and how your creative mind works, and your technique is fabulous. So again, I say again, thank you very much for taking Thursday to be with us here at Jesse James.
I can't appreciate it enough. It's fabulous that you're sharing with me some of the most wonderful product and projects and getting my brain ticking around to think of wonderful new things to bring you.
Well, yeah, Jem and I were just talking before we went live about just the beads and some really cool stuff that came out of the summer fun sets. I like recently have my office like, oh, I can go and be like Vanna White and get things off the wall. But anyway, Jem was saying, hey, next week for the pre-recorded, what do you think if we make like a shark for the Shark Week next? And I just love that idea so very, very much. But today we are doing something very classy, chic, cool. Jem, tell us a little bit about what we're doing today and your relationship with cup chain.
I have always loved cup chain. It's one of those products that the first time you see it, you think, well, sure, I can make some dangly earrings, or I could maybe get it really tight and make a choker, but start thinking outside the box because it will do so many things. And the sparkle, I mean, who doesn't love sparkle? So you can use it with wire, and you can use it traditionally. You can use it even in decoupage projects. Deco patch, I think is the name that's used more commonly. So yeah, you can use it across the board. I almost threw coffee all over myself then.
And Jem, it's in the afternoon. What time is it for you in the UK? It's 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock hour for us here in the mountains, and it's 11 a.m. on the East Coast where a lot of our fans are from. What time is it for you?
So we're apparently in British summertime. It's not very summery at the moment, but it's 4 p.m. here.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's
so normally I have to cut the coffee at 2, but today's a special day. So my Thursdays are sneaky coffee day.
Peaky coffee days. Cheers. Delicious. Okay, we can officially begin. So, okay, I was really excited about the projects that Jem shared with that she shared with me earlier this week and said, hey, do you think that this will be cool for the Thursday show? And she showed me this really cool bangle with cup chain. And I know a lot of us struggle with cup chain, like Jem was saying before, like maybe put it into an earring. Like, what are you going to do besides just be very basic with the cup chain? Like, you either need an end finding or something to make it all come together. However, Jem shows me this bangle. And if you wouldn't mind just holding it up into your overhead cam, Jem. Yeah, so this bangle is constructed, and correct me if I'm wrong, of just wire and the cup chain. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. You can add a clasp of a pre-made variety if you wish, but okay. I will show you how to create the project, including a very simple hook and eye clasp.
Love it. I love it. It's beautiful.
And the color of these stones are absolutely outstanding. Really beautiful.
I'll drop some links for us as once we get going here, but we have got cup chain in a bunch of different colors, and it's honestly one of my favorite things. It's so beautiful just to marvel at.
Yeah, absolutely. If all you wanted to do was to kind of scrunch a length around and put it on a handbag or make the world's simplest brooch, you'd still be winning at life. It's amazing. You can literally just cut a short length and drop it like so, and it looks like $1 million. It really does. It's a beautiful thing.
Love it. I really do. We've got some friends tuning in here. Geez, coffee, kick in. Pam Cotty says, good morning, Sarah and Jem. Hi, Pam. And Deb says, good morning as well. Let's see here. Chris is so cute. Chris says, is it too early to start my Christmas list? Never.
We have something here called Christmas in July. Whereas crafters, we start planning well ahead of the season. So no, you do you. And good morning all.
Morning, everyone. We have got Iona Smith from Wales, UK. Iona, so nice to have you here. And she says she really looks forward to the wire wrapping, and me too, Jem. So shall we, without further ado, this project looks really cool. I want to hear about the supplies. I want to hear your method. Let's get down to this overhead camera. Show us show us the method to this sparkleness.
Sparkle madness. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
So
my mouth.
I'm going to be using 18 gauge wire. You could make it slightly more substantial if you wanted to with a 20 gauge wire. That's the equivalent in the UK is 1 millimeter, which is what I'm using, or take it up to 1.25 if you prefer. Now, what you will need to do is allow at least an inch for the ends of the project, but you will need a little bit extra than that to allow for the actual mechanics to take place. So when you're cutting your cup chain, I'm going to demonstrate for you with a slightly shorter piece, because otherwise we will be here until next Thursday getting that done. And what you would need to do is make your length of cup chain approximately 1 inch less than the wrist size that you're hoping to create. Well, this is quite a tiny project because I have stupid tiny wrists. So this is about 6.5 inches all the way around. So if I was going to recreate that, I'd be looking to cut 5.5 inches of the cup chain. Now, the lighter wire that I'm going to use to bind all this together, I could use 24 gauge or 26 gauge. So that would be 0.4 mil in the UK or 0.5 mil in the UK. Now, there are good reasons for using both of those. The 26 gauge, the 0.4, is really fine and it's really easy to work with, but it doesn't have quite as much residual strength. The 24 gauge or 0.5 mil gauge wire is just slightly heavier, and therefore you build a slightly more substantial piece. Now, in terms of longevity, that's fantastic. However, if you're brand new to working with wire, it can wear away your fingertips just a little bit. If you do this over and over again, if you make 20 of these a day, you'll probably want to use the slightly lighter gauge. If you're just going to use one, I would recommend using the 24 or 0.5 millimeter gauge to wind it all together.
So Jem, a quick question here. First, so we say 26 or 24 for the crisscross building of the bangle, those two tracks that you're going to use to really make the form, what gauge is that? And is it dead soft or hard wire?
It is somewhere in the middle. It's probably most equivalent to German style. So it's like a semi wire. It is neither super flexible nor is it dead hard. So it's 18 gauge that I'm demonstrating with, but you could equally use a 16 gauge if you wanted a slightly chunkier look.
Perfect.
So the 18 gauge works really well with this particular size of the cup chain. Obviously, cup chains do come in different sizes. If you're working with a slightly broader stone in the little basket, then you might want to use a slightly larger wire just to reflect the nature of the shape. Here it kind of all disappears in really, really neatly. So probably I would say 18 gauge and the 26 or the 24 to wrap.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you, Stacy, for asking that question. That was a good one.
Lovely. So if you allow yourself 1 inch less than the wrist size that you're looking to create of the cup chain, but you'll need an extra kind of 3 inches altogether in the wire. So if we just take a look at the example piece that I've got set up here, one of the magical things about cup chain I really love is you can stretch it out a little bit. So you can set this really quite tightly. And if you think, I've cut that just a tad too short, that's probably a metric measurement, a tad. It's not a real measurement, I'm kidding. You can stretch that out a little bit. It is a magical commodity to have, and I thoroughly encourage you to have some and experiment with it. It's so much fun. So let's say that this is the section that is 1 inch smaller than the finished size I want to work with. And I've allowed an extra 3 inches of wire to enable me to create this. And you'll need that twice. So if we were to say that this is 5 inches, I would then need 2 8-inch lengths of wire. Does that all make sense? Is that clear?
I believe so, yes. If anyone has any questions, please just type them out in the comments and I will feed them to Jem as she can't see them.
I can't, because I can't make jewelry and look at comments, because it all goes horribly, horribly wrong if I try to do all of those. So what I'm going to do,
commentator.
huh?
I said, I'll be happy to be your commentator, Jem. You just go on.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. I can't think of anybody more magnificently suited to do that than yourself. What I have in my clammy hands is a huge reel. I'm just going to post a little bit into shot and the camera will go kafloopy, but I have a massive reel of, this is 26 gauge wire. And to stop it from being wasted, I usually work off the reel. So the reel is over to the right out of shot, and I've got a length of wire here, which I can then feed around as and when I need it. So I'm going to pop everything else out of the way. So hopefully the camera might stabilize a little bit, it might not. And what I will do is I'm going to take the cup chain and one of those pieces of wire out of the way to start with. And around 2 inches from one of those ends, I'm going to leave 2-inch tail on the heavier gauge wire, the 18, and at least sort of 3.5 to 4 inches of spare finer gauge wire, in this instance, the 26. And I'm going to wrap that 3 times around to begin the process. I'm going to give that a really good firm squeeze up together, because what you will end up with is a really neat, almost machined looking finish to your wire work. The next thing I'm going to do is just bring in a section of the cup chain that I've cut, as I say, 1 inch shorter than the section you're looking to make. And what I need to do is just dangle that next to the piece of wire that I've started wrapping. And this is so I can gauge how far away I need to drop in my second wire. Now, what we're doing is a variation of channel setting. We're going to create railway tracks or tram tracks with the heavier gauge wire. And I'll just pop that in for a second to show you what I mean. They're going to sit like so either side of the cup chain. And all we're going to do really is support the cup chain in place. Now, up here at the end, we're going to allow that the long tail of wire that's connected to the reel, we're going to allow that to sit in the little divot that is between the 2 stones inside their little cups. I'm just going to rest that there for a second. I'm going to very carefully sit that back where it's supposed to be, being a bit naughty. It will do that as soon as you get 2 or 3 cups in, it will start to behave beautifully. So underneath this cup right now, I've got the finer gauge wire passing underneath both of those 2 channel wires. And it's going to come across underneath at a diagonal angle. And that's going to support the cup chain in position on the end there. And this short tail of cut finer gauge, 26 gauge wire, we're going to wrap 3 times around what appears to be the lower of those 2 channel wires. I'm going to draw that down the center, like so, and pull that firmly into position. Now, I don't want to squeeze this so closely together that I can't loop around either of those wires. There needs to be just a tiny gap above and below that cup. So I'm going to wrap 3 times so that we replicate the 3 times we started on the far side. So again, I'm going to take the tail down between the center of that channel. You can push these up one at a time, or if you have some bent chain nose pliers, if you pop one of the tines of the pliers underneath and one on top of that wire, you can just draw those together super neatly. For the 3rd time that we wrap around the lower of our 2 channel wires, I'm going to draw it across the very, very end of that cup chain. So it's not going over the top, it's going around the end and around the outside of my upper channel wire. And then I'm going to wrap 3 times around just the upper channel wire. So again, you can tighten that up with your fingernails, or if you go above and below the heavy wire, you can squeeze that very gently to become neat. Now, the trick on the ends of this channel set bangle is to very gently taper those wires in where there's no more chain to sit inside, but we will finish that off later. What I want to do to just make sure that this is safe is take this around 3 more times on the lower channel. So my finer gauge wire has passed underneath both of those channel wires, and it's going to go nice and neatly 3 times around. That's once and twice, and then 3 times. And I'm just going to pull that tail up the center so it's out of the way. Now I'm going to free off some of my finer gauge wire, my 26 gauge wire, so that I can swap hands now. What can happen during these first couple of maneuvers is that the cup chain may drop out of the channel you're creating. So it pays just to pinch that quite firmly as you switch that around so that you're swapping your upper channel for your lower channel. If it helps you to begin with, you can open these 2 wires out. Because they're a nice gauge of wire, that 18 gauge, they will come back to straight fairly sensibly. So I'm pushing up from underneath to hold the cup chain into position. And what I'm going to do, my finer gauge wire has passed over the top between those 2 first cups. And I'm going to wrap 3 times around what is now my right hand wire. So all the way around, once, twice, and a 3rd time, and I'm going to pull that back underneath. Now I'm going to be switching this around because I'm trying to keep it low and in the light for you. So my finer gauge wire is underneath. Once I've done 3 or 4 of these wraps, I will flip this whole thing over so you can see how it builds. But for now, what I want to do is get the whole thing safe and secure. So a diagonal stripe underneath the cup, wrap 3 times around the opposite wire. So that's once and twice. You may need to just prise those apart slightly if they're a bit too close. And then the 3rd time needs to pass over the top. So when we're wire weaving, we're quite often doing what we refer to as a figure of 8 weave, where we're swapping over the top, down the middle, around the outside and back, and we're doing a figure of 8. For this to work, we're doing a great big O, a great big circle around both of those. The tension comes from having these nice taut coils around either of those 2 channel wires. So again, we're going to go back to the right hand side, and I'm going to wrap 3 times around here, pulling that firmly but not so close up that you can't get the wire in the gap. So that's over the top and then 3 times around the outside, and it is a repetitious thing. But I want to show you in a second, once it's started to build, what that will look like underneath. So it's starting to gain some traction already, but you will need to keep going a little bit longer. So I'm just going to push that long tail of connected wire underneath. That will travel across the back of the cup in a diagonal. And I'll do just 1 more lot of 3 wraps on this side before I flip it over to show you. Just hit my light, sorry. So that's 1 and 2. And a 3rd time around. Give that a bit of a squeeze, like so. Tidy those little coils up, and then that one will go across the top and wrap 3 times on the far side. I think we're reasonably safe to just turn that over quickly to show you what it started to look like. It's a little bit flexible at this stage, but you can see those diagonals passing across behind the cups as we move along. So I'm going to do a couple more of those. If you have any questions, please do ask and let me know if there's anything that I've not explained terribly clearly. We'll do a few more of these and then we'll have another look at the back when it's starting to build a bit more. So again, it's just a case of wrapping and repeating. So 3 times on the one side. When it passes underneath, it goes from underneath to underneath. Cup chain's fighting me a little bit at the moment. It's the sort of thing that when you start, you think, gosh, will this ever come together? And then by the time you've got 5 or 6 links in the chain settled, it starts to take a nice solidity on. The wires may come a little bit on the squiff, so you would need to just straighten those up slightly. And I will just take a moment to talk to you about the differences between using the 26 gauge as I'm using now and the 24 gauge, which would be the perfect alternative. So the 24 gauge will actually support the cup chain much more strongly. It is just a little bit trickier for people who are newer to wire, even though it's only 0.1 of a millimeter's difference. You can definitely feel it with your fingertips. So I'm going to continue going for a little bit longer, but if you have any questions, do let me know. And as soon as you're bored of seeing me do this, what we'll do is we'll truncate it. We'll make it a very, very short bangle, and I'll show you both of those end techniques so that you can create a full bangle. So again, it's just repeating a case of 3 on one side, 3 on the other side. And every now and again, just neatening up those little coils. So what I'm doing here is if I show you on a bare piece of wire, one of the sides of the pliers goes on the top, the other one goes underneath, like so, but very, very close to the tips of the wires, to the tips of the pliers rather. And you just push very, very gently. We're not doing great big stabbing movements. We're very, very gently coercing those wires into a coil. You can try to do it top and bottom, but if you you need a little bit more practice, I find that incredibly tricky. So I would go for 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom, and just give that a little squeeze, and that will draw it all together nicely. So I'm going to do a couple more sections, and then I'll show you the end pieces and other things that you can make with this exact same technique with your beautiful Jessie James cup chain. So 3 times on the one side, you might need to lift the cup chain if it's getting feisty, 3 times on the other side, and all the while we're building up a security. There needs to be enough tension that you're holding the cup chain in between the 2 wires, but not so much tension that you're pushing the channel into the wrong shape. So you can see the sides of the cups on the cup chain. There's a little gap on either side, so it's being suspended. And if I turn that sideways, you can see that the cup chain is sitting proud of the channel. So when you wear this on the body, it's not uncomfortable in any way, shape or form, just like the cup chain itself. It's like a sultry tennis bracelet from 1962.
I love that.
I actually have a sultry tennis bracelet from 1952 or something very similar that my auntie gave me. It's very pretty. So across the top, 3 times around the right hand side, so that's twice and a 3rd time. And what I might do is just whiz through a couple of these quite quickly and then show you how to create a clasp, which means you can create the whole thing. So once and twice and a 3rd time. So shall we call it a halt there, or do you want to see a few more of those?
I have a question from Lisa. Hey, my friend Lisa.
Hi.
How are you today?
Hi, Lisa.
Okay, so the question is, when do you wrap around the cup chain? So what I'm seeing is you don't really wrap around the cup chain. You just take it over after you've wrapped 3 times around the right, you take it over the top, and then 3 times around the left, and then it goes diagonal over the bottom. Is that correct?
That's correct. What we're doing is we're not covering any of the sparkle at all. If I turn that sideways, you may be able to see if the camera would like to focus.
Yeah, it's tricky with the zoom, and thank you everyone for being patient. We're definitely...
Let me lift that instead. There we go. So hopefully if I twist that sideways, you can see that the wire sits between the cups on top of the little slider section that holds it all together.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's easier, I can continue to wrap at this level.
Yeah, show us a couple more right here, Jem. That would be awesome.
Okay. Excellent. It's very, very tricky with technology to get the camera rather, to stay on the correct zoom. Yeah. So I was hoping that a white background might help, but I think I just need to elevate the whole thing. Here we go. So I'm going to support the cup chain underneath with my hand. My underside stripe is diagonal, and it cuts diagonally across the underside of the cup chain. And I'm going to wrap 3 times around this side. I'm just going to lay the wire across where it will go, which is between the 2 stones. I'm going to support that gently. And then I'm going to show you again the little scoochie of the wire to make it super neat and also super long lasting. With wire work, your danger of breakage occurs where you leave capacity for the wire to move around terribly much. Wire is very, very happy once it's in a position. What it doesn't like to do is be waggled around too much. So if you make these all super neat and tidy and give them this little bit of a kiss with the pliers, you can even swap that over so you're doing a proper kiss, a little sort of left to right and right to left. You're putting a little bit of work hardening into that section of wire. It will stay neat and it should last for a very, very long time to come. So across the top of the channel now, you'll have to tell me if that needs to come back up a bit.
That's better.
Super high up. Okay, so I'm going to wrap 3 times around what is kind of the top side now. 1 and 2, taking the tail of the wire up between the 2 channels. And then we're going to just allow that to lay underneath, pinch it super tight, and then do that little neat squish. So you can see how that's building up. That's probably not a bad angle to inspect the whole thing, to be fair. So on the upside, where you can see the colour of the stones in the cup chain, you've got stripes of wire that pass between the stones. And on the rear side, they cross diagonally across the back of each cup, and that supports the chain inside the channel that you're creating.
Perfect.
So if I flip that back over and do 1 or 2 more, hopefully that will make some sense. And again, if you look after your wire, I'm just going to very, very gently ask it to open up slightly here. If you're kind to your wire will be kind to you and last ever such a long time. So wire underneath, diagonally crossing. I'm going to pinch the wire to get a little bit more control. That's 1 and 2 and 3. And then it comes straight across between the 2 stones inside the cup chain. And then on the far side, so we're always going around the outside of both of those wires. That's 1 and 2 and 3, and then back in the opposite direction, like so.
And then for anyone who's just tuning in later, just to reiterate, the 2 tracks, the 2 tram tracks on the outside, Catherine, are 18 gauge. And then the skinny wire that you're using is 26. Is that correct?
That's correct. What you can do, if you prefer, Catherine, is make it slightly beefier. Use your channel wires, these heavier gauge ones. You can make that with a 16 gauge if you prefer something a bit meatier. And the finer gauge wire can also be used as a 24 gauge, which is, it's super good to work with actually, because it makes it very, very strong. What can happen is people can become slightly over enthusiastic. And when you're doing this little rotation here, it's much easier to squash those 2 channels too close together when you're using a heavier weaving wire. So that's one of the reasons I like to work with the 26, but the 24 gauge means that your jewelry is going to last that little bit longer. So it's, as we say here in the UK, it's horses for courses. It's really whatever is more important to you at the time, but any of those gauges will work. So I'm going to just give those a little bit of a nibble to tighten them up and tidy them. And if you'd like to, what I can show you now is the end sections. So how to create the closure for the bangle. Or I can do a little bit more of the enclosing if you prefer.
Oh, I definitely want to see how you can close the bangle. For anyone that's tuning in now, Jem, you'll have to get us out the sample. Jem is going to show us how to do a hook and eye clasp with the wire. You could employ
wire. Yeah, cool.
Clasp, but it's so neat to see this one that you've made up.
It's a great technique to know because you can use it in so many of your own jewelry pieces when you're working with wire. So what I will do is I will wrap 3 times around what is the upper wire at the moment. I'll see if I can bring that up to the camera slightly. And I'm just going to cut myself a good, let's go with sort of 3 inches or so tail of that wire to work with. I'm going to get that huge reel out the way so it doesn't crush my hand. If you've never cut cup chain before, it's really easy. So I'm going to see if I can get the thing to focus quite high up. What I would do, I'm going to make this particular piece my last piece. So I'm going to get very, very close to the end with my flush cutters and just trim that away. The section that has trimmed away, you can also cut the little bit that's left residual in the end. You can cut that out or you can pull that out. It's entirely up to you. But that for me is perfect for a lovely long drop earring as well. So none of it's ever wasted. I'm going to pop that out of the way. When you get to the other end of the section of cup chain that you're putting in the channel, and as we said earlier, you need a good sort of 3 inches or so excess, so 1.5 inches on one end, 1.5 on the other. You'll need to do your final diagonal across the back. Let me see how close I can get this to focus. So we've diagonally crossed around the back of the cup chain, 3 stripes across the front, and then I'm going to gently draw those 2 wires together. And I'm just going to use the excess of wire to do some exactly the same technique as we've been doing. So round the outside, like so, 3 times, and then passing underneath. But what I'm going to do with this last little bit is just draw those 2 wires slightly closer together, just to put a nice, neat finish on the end. So you could infill with the figure of 8 weave that we talked about earlier. My light's just fallen over, sorry about that. 1 and 2 and 3. Draw that back underneath. And then I think probably this will be the last one. So 1, push that one up. Open those out just a tad, and 2 and 3. And I'm just going to cut away so the end of that wire is inside, in between those 2 channel wires that we're working with. I'm going to push that up really neatly.
Yeah, let's
and I would finish
the camera just real still. Okay, so you basically did the same move that you were doing around the cup chain, but without any cup chain.
Absolutely. So we're always going all the way around the outside, 3 times around one side, 3 times around the other side. We're not crossing backwards and forwards in a figure of 8 maneuver. So I will do the exact same thing on the other end. I'm just going to open those 2 channels out a little bit. And I'm going to take that wire across like so. So I'm just going to make it equal and opposite. I've got 2 passes on this end. So I want to get 2 passes on this end. So that's all the way around once. And you can pull that through twice. And then there's the 3rd time. Trim away, making sure that that end section is nice and neat and tidy and hidden away inside. We just get rid of that residue of wire. So one of the things I wanted to show you that is really cool with cup chain in this fashion, am I going to focus better down here today, or I'll bring that back up again? There we go. So if you need to move that along slightly, you can. Just moving the wires ever so slightly through the end. And you can also shrink that up super tight. So if you made a too long measurement of the cup chain and you need to shrink it down, you can compact them together. Or if you need it to be slightly longer, you can just open those out ever so slightly. You can see a little bit more gap in the middle. So what I'm going to do is spin this around for a second. I'm going to trim to around about 1.5 inches on the far side. So we've got a miniature version of what you should be left with. So this would be the full length. Let's open that out a bit so I've got more to work with. Get that nice and centralized. Is that okay?
Yeah, Jem.
Fabulous. So let's have a look at the project piece. I bring that up super high. What we've got here is a wrapped loop on one end and a little J hook with a wrap on the other end. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do now. You don't need any special tools. Round nose pliers and flush cutters are really helpful. And chain nose pliers, as ever, are really good for getting those wires nice and tight.
Looks fabulous.
It's a great technique to actually learn, to be honest with you. It's really useful. If you have a burr cup file, really useful for making the ends smooth. But what I will always do is have the hook facing outwards. So if you do have any minor scratchiness it's facing away from the skin. Ideally, you would want to file that, but it's just slightly more comfortable. Even if that's the smoothest hook in the world, it's still more comfortable to have that facing away. So if I pop that one down, bring these two pieces into view. So for the first side, what we're going to do is to create that J hook. So you need to be sure that you're happy with where your cup chain is sitting and that the end is nice and tight. What we're going to do is bring these two channels together. So I'm just going to cross them over slightly to begin with. So they're crossing in opposite directions to start with. And then I'm going to turn one of them into a straight line, whoops, like so. And then the other one, this one here, is going to wrap around that a couple of turns. Now I'm going to grip the end of the section that we've worked with. What I'm not doing is gripping anywhere where there are two pieces of wire, one on top of the other. I'm gripping the two channels which are empty, so I'm not touching the weaving and I'm not touching the crossover. I'm going to take the tail of the one that is still bent and I'm going to turn a right angle on it, grip a hold of that and take the tail all the way around the one that we put that shallow angle on. This is much, much easier to do in the 18 gauge than it is in the 16 gauge. I'm just going to trim away after a couple of coils. I'm going to take that tail, give it a squeeze, and get that to sit neatly. So what we've done is we've brought those two channels into one strand of wire. And if you need to at this stage, you can push the channel set chain along slightly and get that to sit exactly how you want it to. And what I would say is that that end of the wire, if you move your pliers around in the same direction as that cut end, you'll just smooth that down slightly so it won't be scratchy. Take a second to get that nice and straight again, because it will undoubtedly have moved whilst you were working with the foil. And just stretch your chain out a little bit, make sure you're happy with the frequency at which everything appears. And to create that J hook, all we're going to do is I'm going to flick this on its side now. So this is the upside, and I'm going to bend the single wire opposite to the upside. And I'm going to grab hold of either my bail makers or my round nose pliers. And I'm just going to create a circular form in there. So you can start with your pliers like so to create that first hook shape, and then you can draw the wire all the way around. So at the moment it resembles a shepherd's crook. What we're going to do is cut it around about where we created the loop on that single neck. Get rid of the residue safely, and then put a tiny little turn on the end, and that will enable us to get in and out of the hook that much easier. So we've got the hook, in and out of the loop so much more easily. So this is the point in time that it would pay to just file those ends off slightly. If you have a file to hand, it doesn't take a huge amount of effort just to make that nice and safe and secure. The best device to have is a little burr cup sander, which will just make a nice little smooth edge on that. So there's your basic hook shape. So on the other end, we would need to make an eye to go with it. So again, you would just need to check at this stage that you're happy with the size you've created, that the channels are, sorry, there's a bit of fluff on my finger. That's probably from one of my dogs. Make sure that you're happy with the length. This section of the cup chain needs to be around about an inch or so less than the size you're trying to make, because we will be using just over an inch to create this joining section. So it starts out in much the same way. We're going to bring those two wires slightly crossed over. One will become a straight and one will become a wrapping around the straight. So I'm going to take one of them in this direction, the other one going across it like so. This one's slightly longer, so I'm going to use this piece to create the loop. So I'm going to come very, very close to where those things have crossed over and make that continue in the straight line. Now the straight line should be approximately central to that cup chain, like so. And then I'm going to flip that around again, hold it where no wires are crossing. So I'm just holding those 2 channel wires. Turn the shorter wire out at 90 degrees. And I'm going to take that tail all the way around, and to match the other end, we'll wrap that twice and then smooth that away. So I've got 2 wraps. I'm going to take that little section of the end off, pop that in the scrap box, and then again, just circle around those wraps like so, and make sure that everything is straight and you're happy with how everything looks before we turn that into a loop. And it needs to be on the same plane as the rest of the project. So I'm going to come a little bit above the 2 wrapped loops, pop a right angle on, and then I'm going to come back in with those round nose pliers and create an oversized circle. So if you have a round form that you like to use, a paintbrush or something, that's very, very useful, or bail making pliers. If you don't have any of those, you can form a really good loop using your round nose pliers. Just open that out slightly. And to finish that loop, you're going to grip on to the loop, not anywhere where wires cross, and just take the tail around a couple of times to fill that gap. So you might like to grab hold of the loop with another pair of quite broad pliers, just to get that little tail tucked away in the gap. So just draw that into position and gradually feed that into the gap that you've left. And you're getting 2 separate pieces of wrapping to link in the center. Now that's not a perfect circle. You could obviously take a little bit more time to make that absolutely perfect. You then want to straighten up your design, open out your hook ever so slightly, and then you would need to choose your form around which you would want to create that shape. So I've got some heart clay silver apparently, which I'm going to start using to form a circular shape. Now bangles can be oval or circular, it's entirely up to you. Because we've made a very dinky project here, I'm going to need to artificially bend this around. Obviously this is the world's tiniest wrist. But you can see how then that would work in the same way. You've created your own closure. And what you can do, let me just open that back up a second.
Love this.
Once that is in a good form for you, take a few minutes to work harden that hook shape. What I'm going to do is switch to some very old, blocky, cheap pliers that I've had since the dawn of time. They've got very big, flat, good box joints, and I'm going to squeeze really, really hard on that J hook. And what we're doing there is we're applying a work hardening so that that shape is likely to be retained, but it will have a little bit of flex so it can come in and out. I mean, it wouldn't be a very comfortable ring, but you get the picture. The technique is there.
It's awesome, Jem. It's like a mommy and me bracelet set.
Oh yeah, oh so sweet. Yes, I mean, hopefully that will cover the basics of it. If the camera trickery has given you any kind of malfunctions today, hit me up in the comments and I'll point you to a tutorial on YouTube that will kind of clarify how to get that done. If there's anything that's not been clear, it won't be the exact same project, but it will much more in depth talk about setting your cup chain in a channel. Can I show you quickly another project which you can do with the very same technique?
Share with us, please, Jem. Yeah. I love this, that we can learn one technique. You know, you get the channel setting with the cup chain, and then you can take it to the next.
Absolutely. So this is almost the exact same technique. The channel setting takes place in the exact same way. But what I did was I started in the middle with a point to create the very bottom of that heart shape. And as the 2 tops come together, they finish off the exact same way as the bangle. And then rather than having a hook and loop, I've created a little loop that goes through one end, and then use those spare wires that we cut off to put a coil on the front and a coil on the back. and that just hides any mechanics. And then added a very, very simple hanging bail, because I think when you have something as sparkly and pretty as cup chain, you don't need to be overly fussy with those other bits and pieces. And I had a little bit left over, so I just popped it on the bottom there.
So beautiful.
They're so much fun, so much fun.
You know, and that's one of the things that's so unique about wire is it's really, the possibilities are endless, you know?
They absolutely are. You can do almost anything. On the subject of almost anything, we've got some really cool stuff coming up for summer camp.
Yay. Yes. Jen, tell me, did you bring the samples for our?
I did. Is it a good time for you to see them?
Yes, do show. I
Yay.
would just preface anyone who's not aware, Jessie James Beads is hosting an online virtual jewelry making summer camp. We have got 9 amazing designers from all across the industry teaching wire working, seed beads, cabochon setting. Like, the gamut is very full spread. And this is what Miss Jem is going to be teaching us how to make. What are we looking at? What is the techniques that we'll be learning at summer camp from you, Jem Hawkes?
So this is fabulous because we'll be working with a square profile and a round profile wire together. Now, square wire is absolutely stunning. It's not something that we can always get hold of in the UK, certainly not in the same wire colors that we have all our other wire colors in. So I'm super excited to be able to access this. So what we're going to look at is forming an outer shape. Now, we've gone for a double dip ice cream because why wouldn't you? It's like a raspberry, strawberry, chocolate, vanilla heaven. And once you've learned how to do this kind of project, which is basically a little bit of channel setting, but in a slightly trickier environment, and we're also learning some infill. Now, I have some old projects with me today, which I can show you. Once you get this technique down, you can apply that to almost any wall art or jewelry where you want to make something more fanciful. So these, I believe, are what we will be working with on summer camp.
Yes, we have got a double, it comes in a little double stacked container. It's our double dip mini mix, strawberry and cream pink, and then brown, beautiful browns on the bottom. It's so cute. I'm really excited.
There are such beautiful beads, and one of the things that I'm picking up about the Jessie James bead mixes is that every single bead in a single box is perfect with every other single bead in that box. I mean, I make bead soup as well, so I will take like 3 or 4 and just chuck them all in and have the best fun in the world ever. But this is what we'll be learning at summer camp, which is a really fanciful double dip ice cream, which you can then take away to create. This is like a mango sorbet ice cream in a waffle cone, because who doesn't love a bit of sorbet when it's hot? But if you fancy that technique transferring over to other projects, let me just show you some of the things I've made over the past 6 or 7 years. So this is my dog Mojo. He's a Jack Russell Terrier. This is a position that Jack Russell Terriers do on a daily basis. It's the play with me move. But the technique for loading beads and forming the shape, once you've learned the double dip ice cream, you can, your imagination can go wild and you can create your own little cats and dogs. And well, let me show you the next one because this has a story with it. Let me just put Mojo down over there. This was supposed to be Mojo's face, but I ran out of beads for the project pack. So it ended up being Falcor the Luck Dragon.
Oh my gosh, I love it. The never ending story.
But he hangs on my wall anyway because I fell in love with him slightly. I thought he was super cute. But it's a very similar technique to what we will learn with the double dip pack. Once you've learned those basic techniques of creating, and also the benefit of the packs that you get with summer camp is having access to that square wire. It's a totally different ball game. It opens up a very, it's extra. It's an extra level of filling because you have a different way that the round wire will react on the edges. If you have round on round, it's nice and soft, but you can create something a little bit more angular and fun with the square wire. So I'm really, really excited to come along for that. And when we go back to the face camera at some point, I'll show you the other project that was from the dim and distant past. But once you've learned this, you can kind of have a go at as well.
So I'm really looking forward to the square wire as well, because square wire, the reason that we brought the square wire on for Jessie James Summer Camp this year is because I really wanted to be able to give to our campers how to set a cabochon, and you need square wire. Well, square wire is very trendy and applicable for setting cabochons as well as half round wire. So those are the two wire types that we need for setting the cabochon, which we'll be doing with Jen Van Benschot, and she is amazing. Jem, if you don't know her yet, you are going to love her.
I'm sure we will get on like a house on fire.
Like just a soul sister. She's really, really cool. And so then I said to Jem, hey, we've got this square wire. What can we do with it? And Jem was like, I've got an idea. Let's learn how to set beads in tracks in it. And this is the project that Jem has come up for us.
Well, absolutely. There's so much fun to be had with wire. There genuinely is. And, you know, when you first start out, you can kind of become a tiny bit frustrated with it, but just keep going. The best advice you could ever receive to work with wire is put it down and try again, because even a week, 1 week's time, the difference between what you make on Monday to what you make on the Sunday is a million miles. Just keep going. It's amazing. And I love it. I'm going to show you one of my favorite creations.
Oh my gosh, Jem, you are just such a boss with the wire. Is this all?
I wouldn't go that far, but it's a looping May hair. So you guys have slightly different hairs in the States than we have here. We have lots and lots of cute little fluffy bunnies, and then a couple of times a year the big aggressive hairs come out, and they're quite scary. They're punch ups in the field. They are.
That's so funny.
It's a true story.
Wow. Jem, that is just so cool to see your wire work, and I'm so excited to see what is to come. We've got a great project planned again for next week. Next week, we're going to do pre-record and air it as a premiere. I'm not sure if maybe that's the better way to go with the camera zooming in and out, but that's the way that we'll do it for next week. And Jem has got a ton of really, really cool tutorials on her channel, Jem's Jewelry Box on YouTube. And you can catch everything that we've been doing here on Jessie James at the Jessie James Beads blog. And then again, next week on Thursday, Jem will be back with another really great wire project.
I am so excited for next week. I literally cannot contain myself. The fact that I haven't shoved it to the camera and spoilt the surprise is something of a miracle, because I'm so excited.
It's going to be really, really great. And we're just gonna tease it for next week, but just know that Shark Week is coming. And if you are loving these tutorials with Jem, I hope that you'll join us at JJB Summer Camp. Our enrollment is still on its way. We've got a 3-month payment plan, which is really awesome to just chop those classes down. But to be able to learn all of this for like $27 is amazing. Jem, for you to take your time to share with us your talent and your creativity is such an inspiration. You inspire me. And I know I'm speaking for all of us in saying that having your energy here is just an inspiration for all of our creativity. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some of my mad, crazy ideas with you.
Really, it's beautiful madness, Jem. Thank you so much. And guys, if you have any questions about today's tutorial, I know that there was some blurriness in and out with the camera angles. We are working on that. I assure you of that one. But if you have any questions about what Jem taught today, just drop them in the comments and tag Jem. She will be happy to help you. Jem, you're amazing. You're an incredible educator.
Thank you so much. I will put a link to the channel setting tutorial. So anything that was fuzzy today, you can go off and you can use again and again and again from the YouTube channel. It's completely free as a resource. So knock your socks off.
Thank you. Jem, I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful morning and afternoon and evening.
And to everyone that's tuning in, no matter what time zone you're in, we wish you a beautiful, beautiful day. And if you're in the United States, a great start to your 4th of July weekend. All right.
Enjoy yourselves.
Bye, everyone.